If you're drawn to a married man, this message is for you. Carl Jung. Why are you attracted to him? That man who wears a ring, who has a built life, who should be untouchable, but that somehow stirs something deep inside you. It's not about morals. It's not about judgment. It's about understanding what this attraction reveals about your own psyche. Carl Jung discovered that our most unconscious love choices carry coded messages from our unconscious. And when a woman finds herself magnetically attracted to a married man, it's rarely about him. It's about unintegrated shadows, ancestral patterns, and an unconscious search for something that was left incomplete in your own history. In this video, you'll find out what's really going on behind the scenes of your mind when this attraction arises. Get ready. Some truths will bother you, but all will set you free. What you're about to discover can completely change how you view your own desires. 1. What her attraction to him really reveals. When you feel this intense attraction to a committed man, your unconscious is trying to show you something that you can't yet see on your own. It's not just physical desire or admiration for his person. It is a luminous sign pointing to old wounds that have never been completely healed. Every time you find yourself thinking about him, fantasizing about impossible encounters, or waiting for a message that may never arrive, a part of you is repeating a pattern much older than this present situation. The hard truth is that this attraction works as a distorted mirror of your own relationship with love, availability, and worthiness. Your unconscious has chosen precisely someone unreachable because deep down there is a hidden belief that you do not deserve to be fully chosen. It sounds cruel, but it's liberating when you finally see it. Its unavailability confirms an internal narrative you've long carried about your own worth. Notice how you feel when you're around him. There is a strange mixture of excitement and anguish, hope and despair, euphoria and emptiness. This emotional roller coaster is not true love, it is emotional addiction. Your nervous system is responding to a familiar pattern of relationship where you need to fight, wait, prove your worth, but never really conquer. It is comfortable in an unhealthy way because it reproduces exactly the kind of dynamics that your unconscious has known since childhood. The attraction also reveals a part of you that has not yet learned to choose reciprocity. You have become accustomed to loving one-sidedly, to offering without receiving in equal measure, to accepting emotional crumbs as if they were complete feasts. And a married man offers just that. Stolen moments, divided attention, vague promises, no strings-attached intensity. For someone who has never experienced full, available love, this may seem like enough. But your unconscious didn't put you in this situation to punish you. He's trying to heal you through repetition, giving you one more chance to finally see the pattern and choose differently this time. 2. The shadow you still don't see. There is a part of you that remains completely invisible to your own eyes, but that commands your love choices like a director backstage in a theater. This hidden part carries everything you've learned to reject in yourself. Your most intense desires, your pent-up anger, your need for attention, your fear of abandonment, your silent envy. And it is precisely this unrecognized part that pushes you towards unavailable men. The shadow works like an unconscious magnet. When you don't integrate rejected aspects of your personality, they show up projected onto your romantic choices. Perhaps you see yourself as someone independent, strong, who doesn't need anyone, but your shadow carries an abandoned child who begs for constant attention. So you choose someone who can never give you that attention fully, confirming both his apparent strength and feeding the hidden wounded child. Or maybe you see yourself as morally right, always making the right choices, following the rules. But her shadow holds a transgressor, someone who wants to break limits, do the forbidden, challenge social norms. And nothing is more transgressive than to get involved with a man who belongs to another. You feed that dark part through it, without having to completely take on that rebellious identity. The shadow also carries its relationship with power and competition. You may never consciously admit it, but there is a part of you that feels satisfaction in being chosen, even when there is another woman in the equation. It's a silent competition where you try to prove your worth by outdoing his wife, even if it's never verbalized. This need to be the special, the different, the one he really wants, comes from a deep wound of inadequacy that has never been resolved. The scariest thing about the shadow is that it acts perfectly precisely because you don't see it. While you believe you are genuinely in love, your shadow is running an old script of self-sabotage. She chooses the wrong man with surgical precision because then you never have to face the real terror, having a real, available relationship where you would be seen completely and perhaps rejected for what you really are. If you're drawn to a married man, this isn't coincidence. It's an unconscious pattern, explained by Carl Jung. The Jung Method shows what this attraction is trying to reveal, pinned in the first comment. 3. The forbidden man and his absent father. The connection between his attraction to unavailable men and his relationship with his father figure is more direct than you might think. Her father was the first man in her life, and the way he was present or absent completely shaped her internal model of male relationships. Even if you believe you have overcome any issue with him, your unconscious keeps every absence, every unfulfilled promise, every moment you needed him and he wasn't there. An emotionally distant father, even if physically present, raises a daughter who learns to love through distance. You get used to crumbs of attention. You learn to value the little moments because they are rare. You develop an abnormal tolerance for emotional abandonment. When a married man appears offering exactly this dynamic of closeness followed by distance, his internal system recognizes it as familiar and confuses familiarity with love. If your father was unpredictable, present time, absent time, you developed a pattern of anxiety about male presence. You've learned that men come and go, that you can never really count on them, that you need to enjoy every moment because it can disappear at any moment. A married man offers just that: sporadic encounters, intermittent attention, temporary presence. To your unconscious, this is not suffering. It is normality. There is also the question of the idealized father. If he was too absent, you created a fantasy about who he really was, filling in the empty spaces with a perfect and unattainable image. Now you look for men who maintain that same quality of fantasy, who never become completely real and everyday. A married man always remains in the sphere of fantasy because you never fully share his life. The repetition of this pattern is your unconscious attempt to finally win your father's love. You choose men who are similar to him in essence, even if different on the surface, hoping that this time you can make someone stay, choose you, prioritize you. But as long as you don't resolve the original wound with the father figure, you will continue to repeat the same pattern with different men. 4. Why do you choose who can't choose you? This is perhaps the hardest truth to swallow. You don't choose unavailable men, even though they can't fully choose you, but precisely because of that. There is a part of you, completely unconscious, that is genuinely afraid of being truly chosen. Because being chosen means being seen, and being seen means that all your flaws, insecurities, and imperfections will be exposed. It's safer to love someone who can never fully know you. When you get involved with a married man, there's a natural limit to how much he can get into your life. He won't meet you on your worst days. He won't see you without makeup every day. He won't witness your crises, your doubts, your moments of extreme fragility. You get to keep an edited version of yourself, always at your best, always interesting, always desirable. This protects your wounded ego from the possibility of real rejection. His unavailability also protects you from having to face true intimacy. Intimacy is not just physical, it's emotional. It's the ability to be vulnerable without masks. And vulnerability terrifies those who grew up learning that showing weakness means being abandoned. So you unconsciously choose situations where complete vulnerability will never be required, where you can keep the walls up while pretending to be indulging. There is also a deep belief that you do not deserve unconditional and available love. Perhaps you learned this in childhood through critical parents, abusive relationships, or traumatic rejection experiences. That belief has become part of your identity, and now you unconsciously sabotage any possibility of being fully loved because it would contradict your internal narrative about your own worth. Choosing who can't choose you also eliminates the responsibility of building something real. True relationships require work, communication, conflict resolution, and joint growth. But when you're with someone unavailable, all the problems can be attributed to the impossible situation, never to your own difficulties in intimacy. It's an ingenious way to avoid looking at your own limitations while maintaining the fantasy that you'd be able to love fully if only the circumstances were different. 5. His marriage is his emotional shield. The ring on his finger acts as a convenient barrier that protects you from something you fear more than you admit: the possibility of a real, available relationship. As long as he's married, you have the perfect excuse to never have to face the true challenges of building lasting intimacy. Every time you feel the weight of the impossibility of this situation, a part of you breathes a sigh of relief because it remains safe within the fantasy. His marriage gives you the freedom to never have to fully show who you are. You can be the idealized version of yourself on sporadic dates, always tidy, always in a good mood, always interesting. You don't have to deal with bills to pay together, difficult decisions, complicated families, boring routines. You're left with just the exciting part of the relationship, while his wife carries the full weight of everyday reality. This shield also protects you from having to take responsibility for your own love future. You can spend years stuck in this situation, telling yourself that you're in love, that you can't give it up, that maybe one day things will change. Meanwhile, the years go by, and you don't have to risk meeting available men, facing possible real rejections, building something from scratch with someone who can really choose you. The impossibility of the situation feeds the emotional intensity. Because everything is rare, every message seems precious, every encounter seems unique, every word of it gains disproportionate weight. You confuse this intensity generated by scarcity with depth of connection. But in fact, this intensity exists precisely because there is no daily life, because there is no real test of compatibility, because everything remains in the sphere of fantasy, fed by absence. The most disturbing thing is to realize that you may not really want him to leave his wife. Because if he did that, you'd lose your shield. I would have to face a real relationship with him, with all the imperfections, conflicts, and disappointments that any relationship carries. The fantasy would die, and you would be face to face with an ordinary person with real flaws, demanding true intimacy. And that terrifies you more than continuing to suffer in the current impossible situation. 6. The fantasy that protects you from reality. Your mind has constructed an elaborate story about this married man, and every piece of that story has been carefully selected to keep you stuck without having to face painful truths. You've fantasized about who he really is, what he feels about you, what it would be like to be with him, and these fantasies protect you from seeing both his reality and your own. As long as you live within this created narrative, you don't have to deal with the real world and its concrete demands. In his fantasy, he is different from all other men. He understands you uniquely. There is a special connection that transcends the circumstances. You have something rare that justifies all the pain and all the waiting. But notice how you came to these conclusions. Through sporadic conversations, stolen moments, ambiguous messages. You've filled in all the empty spaces with your own projections, creating an idealized version of him that probably doesn't match the real person. The fantasy also distorts how you interpret his attitudes. When he disappears for days, you invent explanations that absolve him. When he makes vague promises about the future, you turn them into real commitments in your mind. When he clearly demonstrates that he is not going to change your situation, you choose to believe that he is just scared or confused, not that he is doing exactly what he wants to do. Within the costume, you have also created a version of his wife that conveniently justifies your position. You may imagine him as someone who doesn't understand him, who doesn't really love him, who is with him only for convenience. You'll never admit it, but you need that narrative so you don't feel guilty. You need to believe that there is a moral reason that validates your presence in his life, that somehow you are not doing anything wrong because his marriage was already broken before you showed up. Fantasy is your comfort zone. It's where you can be loved without real risk, where you can hold hope without action, where you can feel emotional intensity without responsibility. But the more time you spend inside it, the farther you get from the possibility of having something real with someone who might truly be available to you. Fantasy becomes a golden prison where you grow old, expecting something that will never happen the way you imagine. 7. When you become the other. There is a moment of brutal awareness when you finally admit to yourself the role you are playing in this story. You are not the protagonist of his relationship, you are the supporting actor. And recognizing this hurts in a way that goes far beyond the present situation, because it touches on old wounds that have always been the second option, the one I was waiting for, the one that was not a priority. To be the other means to live in the shadows, while another woman lives in the light. It has his name, the shared house, the family parties, the plans for the future, the social legitimacy. You have hidden dates, deleted messages, lies to tell your friends, and a love life that needs to be kept secret. And every time you accept this, you are reinforcing to your unconscious that this is the kind of love you deserve. Another woman's position erodes your self-esteem in ways you may not realize until years later. You start to get used to crumbs. You start to think it's normal to be cancelled at the last minute. You learn not to make plans because he may not show up. You accept that holidays and special dates will always be his with his family. You normalize the unacceptable until your rule of what you deserve in a relationship is completely distorted. There is also the shame that you carry alone. You can't talk openly about him with your friends. You can't post pictures together. You can't introduce him to your family. Your love life becomes a secret that you keep, and this isolates you more and more. You develop a double life, where you have to pretend that you are fine, that you are single and available, while internally you are completely involved with someone you cannot publicly come out. And the hardest part, you know you're actively participating in a betrayal, contributing to another woman's pain, even if you've never met her. This creates an internal dissonance between your values and your actions that you try to resolve in various ways, always failing. You can try to convince yourself that his marriage was already bad, that you're not responsible for his choices, that love has no rules. But deep down, you know you're building your temporary happiness on the foundation of someone else's suffering. 8. How to break this pattern at once. Breaking that pattern requires more than simply breaking up with that particular man. It requires you to look directly at the wounds that have led you here, the distorted beliefs about love that you carry, and the courage to choose differently even when your unconscious pushes you back into the familiar. It is a painful process of deconstruction and reconstruction of your way of loving. The first step is to accept that you have an active responsibility in this situation. It's not about guilt or moral judgment, but about recognizing your power of choice. You didn't accidentally stumble upon this impossible relationship. You were drawn to it for deep reasons that have more to do with you than with it. When you take on this responsibility, you also regain your power to choose differently. You need to do the work of looking honestly at your childhood wounds, especially your relationship with parental figures. Where did you learn that love means waiting? Where have you internalized that you need to fight to be chosen? What experiences have taught you that you don't deserve full availability? These answers are there, waiting for you to have the courage to seek them. And when you finally find them, you can begin to heal those wounds instead of repeating them. The cut needs to be complete and definitive. There is no middle ground. There is no friendship. There is no keeping in touch just to see how he is. Your unconscious will use any loophole to pull you back into the old pattern. You need to create total distance, block contacts if necessary, and endure the period of emotional abstinence that will come. It will hurt intensely at first, because you are breaking an addiction, not just ending a relationship. During the healing process, you will need to learn to sit with the void instead of immediately filling it with someone else. This emptiness is scary because it forces you to be with yourself without romantic distractions. But it is precisely in this void that real transformation takes place. It's where you learn that you can survive on your own, that your worth doesn't depend on any man choosing you, that you're enough. Eventually, you'll start to recognize the signs of emotional unavailability early on. You will feel when someone is offering you only crumbs, and you will have the strength to refuse. You'll learn to choose men who pick you back, who are completely available, who want to build something real. And when that happens, you'll look back and realize that that intense attraction to unavailable men was just your unconscious showing you the way back to yourself.